Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I'm so glad that you've joined us this morning because we have a lot to cover, and that's on top of the fact we'll be talking with Sheriff Jim Allard in the 7 o'clock hour. Boy, do we have a lot to cover. First, everyone's talking about the handshake, the tug of war between President Macron and President Trump. We could talk about that meeting, but there seems to be quite a focus on this kind of awkwardness of the continued, almost like a thumb war handshake, just in passing. Now, breaking news from last night, the House GOP did advance the budget framework for the border, energy, and tax priorities for a final vote, as well as to extend President Trump's 2017 tax cuts package. All 9 GOP members of the House Rules Committee approved the blueprint to cut at least $1.5 trillion and as much as $2 trillion in government spending, while capping the total increase to the deficit at $4.5 trillion over the next decade. The cuts will be carried out in the House by the Energy and Commerce Committee, which will seek an $880 billion reduction. The Education and Workforce Committee, which will pursue a $330 billion reduction, and the Agricultural Committee, which will look for $230 billion in cuts. The panel oversees some critical federal benefit programs, including Medicaid and Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, or as you may know as SNAP. The resolution also authorizes up to $300 billion in defense and border security funding and raises the U.S. debt ceiling by $4 trillion. Now, the 4 Democrats on the panel did oppose it. House Rules Committee Chairwoman Virginia Foxx said, despite what my Democrat colleagues are likely to assert, it doesn't contain any specific programmatic assumptions or cuts. The committees are left to best determine their priorities when meeting their instructions. Representative Jim McGovern, a Democrat from Massachusetts, and the top Democrat on the Rules panel, Representative Jim McGovern, slammed the budget resolution, saying there's nothing America first about this budget. This is about gutting programs that help everyday people so that Republicans can give more handouts to billionaires and special interests. He most likely had that statement written before anything was even decided. Very cliche. Now, a full vote on the budget is expected in the lower chamber today, even as a handful of Republican lawmakers are still on the fence about some of the programs that might be targeted for cuts or about the overall reduction in spending. Representative Victoria Spartz said in a statement that she's a no on the current version, and Representative Tim Burkett joined her in opposition on Monday as the Rules panel deliberated. If more than one Republican votes it down, the resolution will fail on the House floor, assuming all lawmakers are present. So we're back in that scenario where we may have a few flies in the ointment, so to speak. House Speaker Mike Johnson said, I don't think anybody wants to be in front of this train. I think they want to be on it. So that is an update from last night. Now, we also heard yesterday that Apple is going to invest $500 billion in the economy in the next 4 years. It would double its advanced manufacturing fund, increasing it to $10 billion, which will help fund the production of U.S.-made semiconductors. So huge news for the economy yesterday. Again, Apple telling America that they are going to invest $500 billion. This comes off the heels of Tim Cook meeting with President Trump. So then I tied in with this. I always like that these stories come out. Senator Amy Klobuchar, you remember her, Democrat. She was on The View yesterday. Now, this can tie in with our media update that we're going to get to here in just a second. We also are going to hear from Assemblyman Phil Palmisano in Albany yesterday to talk about the protests by corrections officers, so you'll want to make sure you stay tuned for that. That's coming up in a little bit. But there's quite a few media updates we're going to just breeze through this morning because the ratings have plummeted for many of the far left networks after Trump's election, and now they're kind of paying the price on that. We'll get to that. But The View was supposedly behind the scenes, according to anonymous sources. They're not very happy with the working conditions right now at The View, with leadership telling them to maybe take it a little easier on Trump. They have not seemed to heed that warning. But Amy Klobuchar was the guest on The View. And Sunny Hostin asked the question, what do you make of this shift in the electorate? Are voters having remorse? Voters' remorse already? Klobuchar says, I think so. It's going to keep building given that what he's doing. But chaos is up. Corruption is up. The costs are up. Like you said, ask anyone in the egg aisle. Part of this is that you've got to look at what's going on. He and Elon Musk, they're looking for more money everywhere. Costs are going up for you while they're giving the tax cuts to their rich friends, and they're looking for money to do that. It's really important we make that case to people because, as you noted, they always talk about other people, but you are the other people. Instead of, helping you with childcare costs and making that more affordable, they decide to go out and help the people that committed violent crimes in the United States Capitol and gave them pardons. Instead of doing something to make your getting a house more affordable for your kids, they decide to go out and try to buy Greenland when it's not even for sale. Those are the cases we have to make, and if any worker right now is feeling their probationary period in the United States government, it is Elon Musk. That's the guy. So I pose a question to you to kick off the program. If you were a Trump voter, do you already have remorse in your vote after I just come off telling you about the budget, as I just come off telling you about the $500 billion that Apple is going to invest in the United States in the next 4 years? Do you, if you were a Trump supporter, have voters' remorse? And do you believe that voters' remorse is building throughout the country? Never mind the cliche talking points that she used, obviously inaccurate, but nonetheless has the platform on The View to say that Trump voters are showing remorse. And that ties in with the conversation we've had so many times on this program where obviously those in the media have not learned their lesson. You have so many people being fired, stepping down. Jim Acosta was a major one, as Jim Acosta was such a anti-Trump kind of figurehead for quite some time during the first term. But now we learn that Lester Holt is leaving NBC Nightly News after a decade. Holt will stay with NBC in a full-time role at Dateline, where he's been the principal anchor there for around 15 years. They did not immediately announce a successor. So Lester Holt was kind of the first breaking media story yesterday. He said, as a 20-year-old radio reporter on the police beat chasing breaking news around San Francisco, I could never imagine my career path would unfold the way it has. What an amazing ride. And then we learned yesterday about Joy Reid and her program going away on MSNBC. Well, MSNBC has promoted Jen Psaki in this shakeup and axed shows hosted by three kind of left anchors. This is on top of Joy Reid's ouster. Psaki, the former press secretary for President Joe Biden, will take over the 9 p.m. duties Tuesday through Fridays from current host Alex Wagner, beginning in late April. The overhaul at the left-leaning network by new president Rebecca Cutler also includes axing weekend shows hosted by, I'm going to try here, I'm not a frequent viewer of MSNBC, but Ayman Mohyeldin, Jonathan Capehart, Katie Pang, and Jose Diaz-Balart. I didn't know he had his own show. Cutler's rearranging of the anchor chair comes after news leaked Sunday that Joy Reid was getting the boot. Her show, The Readout, will be replaced by the hosts of The Weekend, which is Michael Steele, Simone Sanders Townsend, and Alicia Menendez. We're going to tell you a little bit about what Joy Reid had to say. I'm not going to focus on it very much, but we do have to take a look at it because it does send a message that the media landscape could be changing because of the clear bias that has been pushed for so long and no longer having the popularity or people waking up to the bias and saying, I don't need to be told what to believe. I don't need to be insulted. During the campaign when I was concerned about inflation, or how about how much credit they lost, discrediting themselves is a better way to put that, in their defense of, no, Joe Biden is completely healthy. There is no mental decline. He's sharp as a tack, pushing that for nearly 4 years. So they've lost all credibility, and now they wonder why they're forced to make these kind of shakeups and change the media landscape. Joy Reid did bid a farewell yesterday. She compared losing the show to losing a limb during an emotional segment. She also advocated against fascism in her last show, saying that fascism is already here. As the final minutes ticked away, she welcomed MSNBC mainstays Rachel Maddow, Wallace O'Donnell, who each came prepared to pay her homage. I'm not going to go through what they all said. I am going to tell you a little bit about what Maddow said. Wallace said losing Reid was like losing a limb. O'Donnell wrapped up the panel of praise and said that working with Reid has been an honor. Okay. But yes, Joy Reid warning her viewers that fascism is, quote, already here in her final show. We begin tonight with what I think is the question. When you're in the midst of a crisis, and specifically a crisis of democracy, how do you resist? When fascism isn't just coming, it's already here. So what, if anything, can you do about it? For one thing, you can try to learn from history, from what people in this situation in countries around the world and in America have done before. As my friend Rachel Maddow always says, history is here to help. The first rule is to fight back, to never stop resisting. Do not obey in advance. As anti-Trump historian Tim Snyder put it, even if it's scary or uncomfortable or inconvenient, just keep saying no, or finding creative ways to say no in small ways and large. Rachel Maddow believes it was a bad mistake for MSNBC to fire Joy Reid, and that it is indefensible that they ousted her. Joy Reid's show, The Reid Out, ended tonight. And Joy is not taking a different job in the network. She is leaving the network altogether, and that is very, very hard to take. I'm 51 years old. I have been gainfully employed since I was 12, and I've had so many different kinds of jobs you wouldn't believe me if I told you. But in all the jobs I've had in all the years I've been alive, there is no colleague for whom I have more affection, more respect than Joy Reid. I love everything about her. I've learned so much from her. I have so much more to learn from her. I do not want to lose her as a colleague here at MSNBC, and personally, I think it is a bad mistake to let her walk out that door. It is not my call, and I understand that, but that's what I think. I will tell you, and this is the important takeaway, folks, it's also unnerving to see that on a network where we've got two non-white hosts in primetime, both of our non-white hosts in primetime are losing their shows, as is Katie Fang, is that how you say that? On the weekend. And that feels worse than bad. No matter who replaces them, that feels indefensible, and I do not defend it. But there's just one other piece of it that you should know. From your side of the TV screen, you'll mostly see changes in terms of who is in the anchor chair. And actually, everybody who's going to be in the anchor chair from here on out are great colleagues and are great at what they do. And you are not going to be disappointed in who's on our air and what you're going to be seeing. But one thing that you cannot necessarily see is that people who get our shows on the air, they're really being put through the ringer. Dozens of producers and staffers, including some who are among the most experienced, the most talented, and most specialist producers in the building, are facing being laid off. They're being invited to reapply for new jobs. That has never happened at this scale in this way before when it comes to programming changes, presumably because it's not the right way to treat people. And it's inefficient, and it's unnecessary, and it kind of drops the bottom out of whether or not people feel like this is a good place to work. So we do generally do things. We do not generally do things this way. So upset the Joy Reid show and other non-white hosts programs were taken away. And one last thing, since I got a couple quick things about the media. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Ever feel a spectator in your own life with chronic migraine? 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more. Botox prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. In a survey, 91% of users wish they'd started sooner. So why wait? Talk to your doctor.
Botox effects may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as trouble swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Those with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions like rash, breathing problems, dizziness, neck and injection site pain, and headache. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions like ALS, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medicines like botulinum toxins, which may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Chronic migraine may still keep you from being there. Ask your doctor about Botox today. Learn how AbbVie can help you save.
Beat the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hustlesense Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy and your very own Hustlesense Hot Tub? With every spot purchase, Hustlesense guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hustlesense Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hustlesense Chemical Auto Ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustlesense.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. Some of these are in reference to Amy Klobuchar, who said that there's a lot of Trump voters that are now feeling remorse. So I pose a question. If you are a Trump supporter, do you feel that voters' remorse? Jack says, no remorse here. I'm overjoyed still. Glad to see that the Trump team is exposing the waste. I feel like a joyful Democrat these days. A little throwback reference to the campaign. Thank you, Jack. Another comment from a different viewer. No remorse. Someone is finally addressing huge fiscal problems that cannot be sustained. You cannot write checks that your you-know-what can't cover. Well, they said but can't cover. Yes, thank you very much for that. So that's two no remorses. Mark writes in, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. I see Musk is giving government workers another chance to list what they did last week or be terminated. Yeah, and it seems as if Trump is supporting that move. I think a lot of it, like Trump was saying, is not so much about responding necessarily to email to see that if you're even there, if you check your email, or if you're just someone getting a paycheck that most people wouldn't even realize in the building that you work there. So I think there's something to that. Continuing, I have no remorse. I voted for Trump. We need to look at the big picture. Well, thank you, Mark. These news agencies, and this is in reference to what we were talking about with Joy Reid and others, these news agencies that are going under, it's no surprise the public is sick of the lies and made-up stories, and they twist them to suit themselves. Yeah, I think the glaring example of that is, and when so many people's eyes were open, is when the presidential debate happened with Joe Biden. And people realized that, especially kind of the far-left MSNBC viewers said, wait a minute, you've been lying to me for 4 years about his mental decline. So you lost all credibility. By the way, a judge has denied the Associated Press in their emergency motion to restore their White House action. That was a lawsuit, if you will, that they pushed because of the whole controversy over the Gulf of America, not using the term Gulf of America. So Trump said that, okay, it's not a right for you to have this access, so we're taking that access away. They sued, and the judge denied their emergency motion to restore. Also, one last update on media, and then we're going to get to New York State issues, and we do have some local issues. But just to show you the media has not learned, ABC News legal analyst Sunny Hostin declared on The View, she's on The View, that being anti-woke means, quote, you don't care about your fellow neighbor, and that is ungodly. So being anti-woke is ungodly. Hosted said, yeah, I thought about the conversations you and I have had, Whoopi, so many times about the co-opting of the word woke and the fact that the right somehow has made it a dirty word. To be woke is a word that came out of the African-American community. And it was about acknowledging social justice inequalities, or I should say inequities, excuse me. Acknowledging people's suffering. It is not a bad thing to care about other people, to care about the sufferings of others and to act upon it. So it angers me when people are like, this woke stuff's got to go. That's telling me you don't care about my lived experience. You don't care about the oppression of the LGBTQ community. You don't care about the oppression of the disabled. You don't care about the oppression of immigrants. You don't care about your fellow neighbor. and that is ungodly. That is not Christian. So on that note, has the media learned? The other question we're posing this morning, do you have Trump voter remorse, as Amy Klobuchar has suggested? I want to get, and the reason why I'm moving quickly here is because it's time to get to the corrections officer protests. Assembly Republicans renewed their calls to repeal the HALT Act amid this crisis. We're going to talk about that. We're going to hear from Assemblyman Phil Palmisano coming up next. We do have some other local issues. You may have seen some updates on the mayor's race in New York. Also, Hochul's lieutenant governor saying that he's not going to run with her, hinting that he may be running for governor himself. So some pretty big breaking New York stories yesterday. So stay with us. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Some people who need Social Security disability benefits go to their hearing alone and get turned down. Not every lawyer will appeal a denial after your hearing. I will. I'm Peter Gorton of Lockman & Gorton. I help people win benefits by appealing their denials, including in federal court. But your time to appeal is limited, so call my office now.
Lockman & Gordon, 1-800-698-0567.
I would never picture that I have. I'm the only one that's not smiling. Even though I'm with my close friends, I felt alone. I didn't feel pretty. I didn't feel confident. When I got Invisalign, I built my confidence. It was the best investment that I could do.
Power up, America. The Ford President's Day sales event is here. Save on the vehicles that will take you places, give you a surge of productivity, and a new sense of freedom. So head to your local Ford store, because it's time to get in the driver's seat. A special offer for Ram owners. Right now, you can lease a Ford F-150 for $299 a month for 36 months, only at your local Ford stores.
Every Judge Mathis presides.
Don't you ever form your mouth to talk to me like that.
Is another day when someone gets what they deserve.
What's wrong with you?
Mathis Court with Judge Mathis.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. As was mentioned, and welcome back to Frankly Speaking, I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Historic Market Street. As was mentioned, I believe by Mark, Musk tweeted late yesterday as the deadline neared for that email on the 5 things you accomplished last week, that workers were given a second chance, quote, at the discretion of the president, but that, quote, failure to respond a second time will result in termination. I thought it was kind of funny when he said yesterday that this is a very low bar. You basically just have to make it, ensure them that you are actually going to work, that you are actually have a job to do. But we may get to that a little bit later on, but we have to talk about the correctional system crisis. Assembly Minority Leader Will Barclay and members of the Minority Conference gathered to urge Governor Hochul and her administration to take immediate action to resolve the crisis at the state's correctional facilities, including the repeal of the HALT Act. That follows a letter that, if you recall, I mentioned that they sent last week to the governor. Since the beginning of the demonstrations outside the state's correctional facilities, members of the Assembly Minority Conference have visited with the hardworking men and women employed at these facilities. We talked with Phil Palmisano Friday. He had visited Elmira the day before. But if you look at the numbers, inmate-on-inmate assaults have increased 169%. Inmate-on-staff assaults have increased 76%. And instances of contraband have increased 32%. So now we go over to what Assemblyman Phil Palmisano had to say during yesterday's press conference.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Phil Palmisano. This is my 15th year. Since I've been here, I've had 2 facilities in my actual assembly district close, and I've had 2 facilities right adjacent to my district close that had employees from my district close. I've seen the devastation of these closures. The fact of the matter is, we all know we have a staffing and safety crisis going on in our correctional facilities today, and it's all due to the failed policies of this administration and the majorities and the past administration. As the leader said, this weekend I spent the time at Elmira Correctional Facility and 5 Points talking to my corrections officers. And as he said, this is not about money. It's about safety, and it's about quality of life. That's what they were saying. They want to see their families. They come in for an 8-hour shift that gets mandated to a 16-hour shift and a 24-hour shift. So it's these failed policies. Let's talk about the prison closures, more than 25 since 2011. Restricting and taking away or not providing the tools and resources necessary for our corrections officers to be safe and do their job. We talked about the HALT Act, which basically allows prevented our corrections officers from segregating the most dangerous and violent inmates from the rest of the general population. The drugs getting into our facilities. We should have drug dogs at every correctional facility. With HALT, it was implemented 3 years ago. After year 1, we saw the violence stack up. After year 1, he said we need more data. After year 2, we said we need more data. After 3 years, I think the data speaks clear. Inmate-on-inmate assaults, and again, inmate-on-inmate assaults are up 169% during that time, going from 1,100 to nearly 3,000 over that period of time. Inmate-on-staff assaults are up 76%, going from 1,100 to just over 2,000 in that period of time. Also, contraband seizures are up 32%, going from 3,500 to 4,700 during that period of time. This has all led to a violent and dangerous environment. It's a powder keg environment. Let me talk to you about our staffing crisis that we're going on right now. The morale is bad. We all heard it when talking to our COs. Last week, before this all happened, the Commissioner of Corrections put out a staffing memo saying 70% is the new 100%. Basically, what that was going to do was going to eliminate open posts and positions, not because they weren't needed for safety, but because they couldn't fill those positions. What that would have done was kind of hide the staffing crisis on paper, but it wouldn't have made things any safer. So they walk in, they're looking at triple overtime. And our corrections officers, think about the inmates. They get iPads so they can talk to their families whenever they want. When our corrections officers go into facilities, they can't bring their phones. They can't talk to their families. So they go in for 8 hours. It gets mandated to 16 or 24. They can't talk to their families. They can't FaceTime with their families. How is this not a problem? Last year, when the governor was authorized to close up the 5 prisons, during the budget hearing, the Commissioner of Corrections said, we have to close the prisons because we have a staffing crisis. Think about that. We're closing prisons because of a staffing crisis? Hospitals and nursing homes have staffing crises too. We don't close them down, do we? What do? We provide recruitment bonuses. We provide retention bonuses. We increase pay. We provide better benefits. That's what we need to be doing for our corrections officers. We need better benefits and pay. We should be implementing recruitment bonuses. We should be implementing retention bonuses. And the starting salary of a CO is just over $56,000. That is woefully inadequate. After 7 years, it's about $72,000. Now with overtime, it can go up, but that is woefully inadequate. Now, let me talk about the death gamble. We passed that 2 years in a row. The first time the governor vetoed it, she vetoed it twice. She said it needs to be part of the budget. She didn't put it in her budget the following year. Last year we passed it unanimously. She vetoed it. And then she didn't put it in her budget this year. Sure, her 30-day amendment, she didn't put it in her budget. And if you're not sure, understand what the death gamble is, it would preserve and secure a pension for our corrections officers once they reach retirement age. So if they were to die while employed in service, their spouse and family would get that benefit rather than just a death benefit. That needs to be passed. That's the right thing to do. That would be a good recruitment and retention policy. Right now, we have 2,200 vacancies in our correctional facilities. Last year, we had a class of 500, but we lost 600 through resignations and retirement. It's unsustainable and not safe. We will be putting out a significant recruitment and retention package in the near future, but that's what we need to be doing. And also, just to think about it, There's just some other stats for you if you want. Right now, 73% of the inmates in our state prisons are violent felony offenders, and almost 60% of inmates that are housed in our medium securities are violent felony offenders. Last year, the governor closed down 22 correctional facilities, 2,200 beds came offline. But the population has increased by 2,200 inmates during that same period of time. Enough is enough. The governor can end this right now. She should do, we want to repeal the HALT Act. It takes the legislation, but the governor right now could suspend the HALT Act on her own because it's an emergency inside our correctional facility. She declares an emergency. It was used during COVID. She could suspend it, and the memo that came out from the Department of Corrections said temporarily suspend for certain parts of it. If the suspension of the HALT Act does not allow our corrections officers to segregate the most dangerous and violent inmates from the rest of the general population, to free that up for them, it's not going to make a difference. It's like the bail reform laws. The governor says, we're doing this, we're tinkering with that. But at the end of the day, we are still the only state in the nation that does not allow the judges the discretion to consider the dangerousness of an individual. So the governor should suspend and act to repeal the HALT Act. The governor should put in the death gamble legislation to protect those pensions for our families and for our corrections officers. And we need to be really serious about dealing with the violence and doing more to recruit and retain our corrections officers. So thank you very much.
Thank you to Assemblyman Phil Palmisano for sending that clip. It sounded like there were some protesters in the background. I'm not sure what they were protesting. We'll have to ask Phil. But just to Phil's point, Hochul has announced that she wants to close up to 5 more prisons. For the second year in a row, Governor Kathy Hochul seeks authority to close as many as 5 more prisons. Unlike other years, the proposal comes as thousands of corrections officers continue their unlawful strike for better working conditions. Hochul's request is included in a 2-page budget amendment, which is slim on details. The amendment is subject to negotiation with the state legislature, which typically approves a budget by April 1st. So just to Phil's point on that, Steuben County Legislature sent out a letter in support of the corrections officers and calls for safer working conditions. That was announced yesterday. They resolved to support the right of corrections officers to a safe and secure workplace. Furthermore, the legislature calls upon Governor Kathy Hochul, the New York State Legislature, and the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision to enact critical reforms to enhance safety within the correctional facilities. They would include a comprehensive review of the HALT Act and its impact on facility safety. I don't think a review goes far enough. I don't think that is what the corrections officers are rightfully asking for, which is an end to HALT that has put their lives in danger, other inmates' lives in danger. But I'll continue with what they sent in their letter. Implementation of reasonable shift and overtime policies, ensuring appropriate staffing levels to mitigate other fatigue and burnout, and competitive pay and benefits to attract and retain skilled professionals in the field. When we come back, we're going to highlight, coming from the New York Post editorial board, how Governor Hochul is bungling, as they put it, New York's prison crisis. Yes, I have a comment from Mark who said, if the deputy lieutenant governor is not running with Hochul, they must know that the New York population is not for her policies. Yes, New York Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado announced yesterday that he's leaving the ticket following public breaks with Hochul. We know that there have been some kind of butting heads between him and Hochul, also insinuating a possible run for governor in 2026. He said he is determined to be your voice in state government now and in the future. Interesting there. We'll maybe get to that. I'm hoping we can get to other issues, specifically with DOGE. Your thoughts on giving the employees, the government employees, a second chance at the president's request, but they do need to respond to the email to list the 5 things that they did, or they will be terminated. Trump put it in kind of typical Trumpian fashion that they'll be fired or semi-fired. And I'm paraphrasing, but that was essentially what he was saying. So we can talk about that as well. Keep the comments, keep the waves coming in. As I said, in the next hour, we will be talking with Sheriff Jim Allard. So you'll want to be a part of that, as we had the story that broke last week that the county, Steuben County, will be appealing that court decision that found in favor of the sheriff. But right now, we have to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Ever feel a spectator in your own life with chronic migraine? 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more. Botox prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. In a survey, 91% of users wish they'd started sooner. So why wait? Talk to your doctor.
Botox effects may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as trouble swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Those with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions like rash, breathing problems, dizziness, neck and injection site pain, and headache. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions like ALS, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medicines like botulinum toxins, which may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Chronic migraine may still keep you from being there. Ask your doctor about Botox today. Learn how AbbVie can help you save.
Let's beat the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hustlesense Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy and your very own Hustlesense Hot Tub? With every spa purchase, Hustlesense guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hustlesense Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hustlesense chemical auto ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustlesense.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you for joining us this morning. So we're talking about the prison crisis. The New York Post editorial board said, leave it to Governor Hochul to bungle another crisis. This time, strikes by corrections officers at some 30 state prisons. Over the past week, officers have walked off the job, citing an upsurge in violence at their facilities, sparked by understaffing, 24-hour shifts, and limits on the use of solitary confinement. The walkout has worsened already unsafe conditions, prompting the governor to deploy National Guard troops to some of the prisons. Yet both inmates and staff remain at risk of an explosion of violence. So where's Hochul been? Under the state's Taylor law, corrections officers have no legal right to strike. But so far, she's refused to enforce it. Although the state did threaten to hold officers in contempt for violating a court order to return to work, yet she also won't address a key gripe of the striking COs, the HALT Act, which is just so amazing how bad she is handling this. Not really doing anything. Not even, other than that first couple days, not even really releasing statements that I've seen. Now, we can go through other numbers. We've read the numbers to you numerous times before. But we get it. Doing time in solitary can be rough. Bleeding heart critics call it torture. But prisoners can avoid such punishment just by behaving. Indeed, a credible threat of confinement can be a vital deterrent. More important, corrections officers often have no other way of stopping violent outbursts except to separate out-of-control prisoners, which is why limiting those who qualify for solitary and capping the time they can spend in it inevitably leads to more chaos and injuries. At least unless the powers that be otherwise act to reduce the risks, say by spending the cash to cut the prisoner to CEO ratio. New York's headed in the opposite direction. In 2023, the prisoner to security staff ratio has risen to 2.2, up from 1.8 2 years earlier. Hence, too, the rise in the 24-hour shifts and other consequences of understaffing. Of course, the progressives who pushed the HALT Act couldn't care less about the violence they've caused. And a spineless Hochul has never shown a willingness to stand up to the progressives. So expect the surge in prison chaos to remain high, even if corrections officers return to their post. Thank you, to the New York Post for that. As I mentioned, the New York Lieutenant Governor, Antonio Delgado, has announced he's leaving the ticket following the numerous butting of head instances between him and Hochul. A source close to Delgado told the New York Post that the lieutenant governor initiated the decision to break from the ticket, but a Hochul-connected source suggested the governor decided a month ago she wouldn't be running with him next year, so a little back and forth. Delgado's statement said, "When I first made the decision to run for office after the 2016 presidential election, I did so because I believe we needed more leaders in government willing to hold themselves accountable to the people and only the people." Another source said Delgado had been feeling out potential fundraisers in recent weeks, fueling speculation about that gubernatorial run. A statement from Governor Hochul's office stated today, Antonio Delgado finally said out loud what has been obvious for quite some time. He is simply not interested in doing the job of lieutenant governor of the state of New York. Governor Hochul had already begun taking steps to identify a new running mate for 2026. We will also be reallocating responsibilities within the administration to ensure that important initiatives that have been within the lieutenant governor's office are no longer neglected. Governor Hochul wishes him the best in his future endeavors. It was also announced yesterday, maybe to kind of take away some of the attention on that and kind of the insulting nature of that. Governor Hochul announced her new campaign manager, which is Preston Elliott. But also the key takeaway from this is that she has $32.5 million raised during the off cycle for her campaign. So she has a war chest. And this is why, we talk about how unpopular she is and the chance that maybe a Republican could win this year. You've got to remember that she has a war chest of $32.5 million. So it's going to be a tough uphill battle, not one that we take lightly, one that we have to still focus on. Now, Richie Torres, interestingly enough, he's the Democrat that many people speculate will be primarying Governor Hochul. He came out, and I don't know if this was a right move on his part, but he came out yesterday and endorsed former governor Andrew Cuomo for mayor, saying that Mr. Tough Guy, Andrew Cuomo, he endorsed him for New York City mayor. The two most important things we need are competence and courage, Richie Torres said. Andrew Cuomo has the competence to govern the city. He has the courage to stand up to the extremist politics, both from the far left and the far right. We don't need a Mr. Nice Guy. We need a Mr. Tough Guy. I would argue that the nursing home decision, perhaps one of the worst decisions made by an elected official, especially during COVID, but perhaps of nearly all time, disqualifies him from that, the competence and courage quote that Richie Torres made. But that's an interesting take, because Richie Torres is trying to be Mr. Public Safety, even though in the past he was a defund the police candidate. But he is looking to nip at Governor Hochul's heels if he decides to ultimately primary her. It also sounds like the lieutenant governor may be primarying her, so it could be a crowded field. Now, Adams did brush off Richie Torres' endorsement of Cuomo. Congressman Torres also called for the former governor to step down. I don't know what happened differently now. That's a good point. He did call for Cuomo to step down as governor. So I'm not sure what has changed is Eric Adams' position. And there's a piece that we just don't have time to get to it all, but it's city and state New York. Can Andrew Cuomo bounce back? Since resigning in disgrace, the former governor has largely weathered his scandals and carefully orchestrated his political comeback. It was stated that, March 4th, they had sent out a sort of save the date for some of Cuomo's supporters, not saying exactly what that event was going to be, but people are speculating that that's when he could make his announcement that he'll be running for mayor of New York City. The piece states, with the breakneck pace of the news since January, who knows how well such attacks will ultimately play in a few months or even a few weeks. And of course, none of this is certain, as Cuomo has still made no formal declaration. The former governor stands to lose it all if a run for mayor ends in anything but his residence in Gracie Mansion. As much as Cuomo appears to be weathering his scandals as he prepares to launch a comeback, he still needs to make sure voters truly believe it's warranted once the behind-the-scenes games end. I'm telling you, the nursing home decision, in my opinion, disqualifies him from ever running for elected office again. But that will be up to the residents of New York City to decide. I see some comments coming in. Keep them coming in. And the waves as well. As I said, we do have Sheriff Aller coming up in the next hour. So stay with us. We got to take a short break. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
It's time to say not so fast chronic kidney disease. Because with a progressive disease like CKD, slow is good. And believe me, I know all about slow. That's why I'm here to tell you about Jardiance. It's a little pill proven to slow the progression of CKD and reduce the risk of kidney failure, which can lead to dialysis.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardiance may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardiance. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
So go on, say not so fast CKD. Ask your doctor about Jardiance for chronic kidney disease.
Every day, Judge Ebony K. Williams presides is another day when right prevails over wrong.
I can tell what happened to you, sir, because I was born at night, not last night.
Equal Justice with Judge Ebony K. Williams.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Our beautiful view of Market Street, and that's where we're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio from. Right here in the studio. All right, a couple comments from viewers. This is Jack. Jack says his opinion, the left was like a woke tornado tearing through government. The spin of the woke NATO was so powerful that it blew itself out, leaving behind many paths of destruction. It will take a Trump NATO of change to fix it, but like all disasters, it will take time to repair, and the debris left behind will be uncomfortable to deal with, as we are hearing about daily. However, huge destruction always exposes a lot of waste. Now it's up for us as voters to support the cleanup. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. Performance reviews are common and expected in the private sector. Why shouldn't it be expected at the federal and state level? Yes, I think that's one of the problems with their messaging on this. They want you to feel bad about something as simple as a performance review. As a matter of fact, the job that Doge is doing, you had a lawmaker compare it, invoked the famous Holocaust quote in an attack on Doge, the first they came for. I mean, again, we talked earlier, if you have voter remorse, because Amy Klobuchar thinks you do if you're a Trump supporter. But I would also ask the question, when you see these cuts, obviously we don't want to see people lose their jobs. That's not warranted. But as of right now, they're going after the people that they believe created a lot of this cost, and they were probationary. So they were hired during the Biden administration, so they're looking for different avenues. But you can see already the stories that the media are putting out about the person that got fired, or these emails coming out. I think you raise a good point. Performance reviews are common and expected in the private sector. So why not in jobs where our tax dollars go to pay for those salaries? Very good point. Thank you, viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Oh, this is Fred, by the way. Hi, Fred. With the Trump approval rating being higher than ever, the Democrats have no talking points. They make up stories about voter regret and yesterday's James Carville anticipation of an administration implosion. Yes, he said, sit back, relax. The administration is going to implode. But truly grasping at straws, Fred writes, tax breaks for billionaires is their sad old standby mantra, while not a mention of the wasteful spending that is being uncovered. No regrets here, said Fred. Thank you very much. That's in reference, if you are just joining us, Senator Amy Klobuchar suggests that Trump supporters are having voters' remorse already. So I just posed the question, do you have that remorse? Now, before we take our last break of this hour, we've talked national, we've talked state, so let's talk local. This specifically in Corning. Councilman Mark Rizzo announced his re-election bid for Corning City Council. He is in the 7th Ward for all of our Corning viewers. He stated, our city's future depends on attracting new, viable businesses that bring quality jobs to our community. While we work towards economic revitalization, we must also address the pressing challenges that concern so many of our residents, namely the drug epidemic and the homelessness crisis. These issues have far-reaching consequences and require real solutions. Now, he is a lifelong resident of Corning. He and his family live on Princeton Avenue. That is Mark Rizzo has announced he is running for re-election for Corning City Council. That is the 7th Ward. Wanted to pass that along to you. And as always, and this will happen more in the future after the petition season, but we will have as many local guests on as we possibly can to pass along that information for you so that you are the most informed as you go either to vote in a primary or if you go to vote in the general election. So the petition process, I believe, actually starts today, where you can start taking out the petitions to get signed. So some things will unfold at that point. We'll start to get a better idea or a clearer picture of who some of the candidates are, who are some that decided maybe not to follow the path because petitions are not fun. So we'll keep an eye on that. Speaking of people running, Vivek Ramaswamy announced yesterday that he is running for Ohio governor. He said, I will lead Ohio to be the state of excellence. President Trump is reviving our conviction in America. We require a leader here at home who will revive our conviction in Ohio. And that is why today I'm honored to announce I'm running to be the next governor of a great state at the heart of the greatest nation known to mankind. The state where I was born and raised, the state where Apurva and I raise our 2 sons today, a state whose best days are still ahead. I'm honored to announce my candidacy to serve as the next governor of the state of Ohio. So instantly, and Ramaswamy, one of the early members of DOGE, he was instantly endorsed by Trump and Musk. Trump wrote, Vivek Ramaswamy is running for governor of the great state of Ohio. I know him well, competed against him, and he is something special. He's young, strong, and smart. Vivek is also a very good person who truly loves our country. He will be a great governor of Ohio, will never let you down, and has my complete and total endorsement. Musk responding, good luck. You have my full endorsement. So that's just an update from someone that we mentioned quite a bit during Trump's campaign. All right, that's going to tie into us talking about DOGE. When we come back, stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Every year, millions fly with us at Allegiant because together, we go places. We see old friends and try new things. We laugh. We really like to laugh. And reconnect. We remember. And we wander, which leads to wonder. From how we go to where we go to what we do when we get there, we go further together.
Beat the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hustlesense Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy and your very own Hustlesense Hot Tub. With every spot purchase, Hustlesense guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hustlesense Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hustlesense Chemical Auto Ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustle.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Wrapping up our number one, let's go to a comment. They can cut down Trump all they want. At least he didn't put infected people in nursing homes to effectively kill old people. And if you remember correctly, Trump even sent a mercy ship into New York City to help with the crisis. Yeah, and that was not used because of political purposes, because of political issues. And that's another example why Cuomo is just, in my mind, not the man to lead New York City. So in conclusion, there was no reason to put infected people in those nursing homes. There's absolutely not. And that's why the former governor, has attempted so frequently to lie, mislead about it, cover up the numbers. I remember when the story first started breaking, it was really based out of Steuben County and the local counties that started highlighting it, that infected people should never be put into nursing homes. We're the most vulnerable. Cuomo did it anyway because we know of Cuomo's kind of arrogance, and he knows better than everyone else. We see what that disastrous policy led to, that tragedy. And now will the residents of New York City give him kind of another chance, help him? And that's on top of all the other scandals that he had. That's not even why he resigned. Will they give him a second chance? Time will tell. It's hard to believe that we're still talking. And it's just like I mentioned with Joe Semplinsky last week. It's pretty shocking that we're talking about Andrew Cuomo and Anthony Weiner. Anthony Weiner is attempting to run for city council in New York. Old is new again, I guess. Elon Musk warned the federal government workers who don't respond to a second "what you accomplished" email will face termination. This warning came hours after the Office of Personnel Management notified human resource bosses across multiple agencies that responses to emails sent Saturday demanding a list of 5 bullet points detailing what federal workers achieved in the previous 5 working days were, quote, voluntary, and the failure to respond would not be taken as a resignation, as Musk had originally claimed. Musk wrote on X, the email request was utterly trivial, as the standard for passing the test was to type some words and press send. Yet so many failed even that inane test, urged on in some cases by their managers. Subject to the discretion of the president, they will be given another chance. Failure to respond a second time will result in termination. The billionaire head of President Trump's Doge argued the level of concern sparked by the initial demand was absurd and indicative that something is deeply wrong with the federal workforce. And like to that viewer's point, I mean, in the real world, in the private sector, very often you have reviews, at least once a year, reviews, and, you know, check your work scenarios. And so the fact that the federal government is up in arms over this maybe shows a deeper problem, like Elon Musk said. But I just realized we are out of time. I see some other comments coming in, some waves coming in. If you have any questions for our guest, Sheriff Allard, who should be in a little bit in the next hour, please feel free to get those questions to me. All right. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2, mere moments away. So please stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Nappies has a new and improved repair shop. Let our friendly staff of specialists help you through the process and get it done right the first time. Family owned for 3 generations.
Thank you for your business.
Insist on Nappies, auto body done right.
Ever feel spectator in your own life with chronic migraine? 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more. Botox prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. In a survey, 91% of users wish they'd started sooner. So why wait? Talk to your doctor.
Botox effects may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as trouble swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Those with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions like rash, breathing problems, dizziness, neck and injection site pain, and headache. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions like ALS, myasthenia gravis or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medicines like botulinum toxins, which may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Chronic migraine may still keep you from being there. Ask your doctor about Botox today. Learn how AbbVie can help you save.
Well, it's hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We've had so many great comments and so many waves coming in. Appreciate it. We were talking about Musk, but before that, from a viewer, Fred writes in, I've never heard a word about the replacement for J.D. Vance in the Senate. I did hear that Vivek was a possibility. Evidently, he was not chosen by the Ohio governor. Just who did get that open Senate seat? Yes, the governor, DeWine, announced that it would be filled by Ohio Lieutenant Governor John Husted. I remember that announcement coming a little while ago, probably a month ago. Hence the time when JD had to step down from the Senate. I know there was some, I'm not going to say disappointment at the time, but that's one of the reasons why Vivek, I think, ultimately decided to run for governor. There was some disappointment that he was not chosen for that Senate seat because, yes, I remember when that conversation was happening, Fred. But no, ultimately the governor announced that it was Ohio Lieutenant Governor John Husted that would be taking over JD's Senate seat. So we were talking about the what you accomplished email. I mean, the one thing I think is funny that Elon Musk almost can't grasp because he is in the private sector is the pushback on this in the sense of he said the bar was set so low. You basically had to type and hit send. That it's absurd and that it shows maybe a problem on the bigger picture. Something is deeply wrong, he said, with the federal workforce. Responses to the first batch of what you accomplished emails were due by 11:59 Eastern Standard Time on Monday. Trump defended Musk's effort, saying, I thought it was great because we have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows if they work for the government. What's he going to say? Are you actually working? All we're saying is, are you actually working? So Trump did back the email. Tell us what you did last week. And then if you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired because a lot of people are not answering because they don't even exist. So I think it was actually, there was a lot of genius in sending it. We're trying to find out if people are working. And so we're sending a letter to people. Please tell us what you did last week. If people don't respond, it's very possible that there is no such person or that they're not working. So again, if you are just joining us, Musk tweeted out yesterday saying, consistent with President Trump's instructions, all federal employees will shortly receive an email requesting to understand what they've done last week. Failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. So there you go. On Monday morning, some agencies, such as the Department of Veterans Affairs, told employees the email was valid. Some other department managers said they weren't. That's where some of the confusion started to pop up. Asked about a disconnect in communications, Trump said no. And that was done in a friendly manner. Only things such as perhaps Marco at State Department, where they have very confidential things, or the FBI, where they're working on confidential things. And they don't mean that in any way combatively with Elon. They're just saying there are some people that they don't really want to have to tell you what they've been working on last week. But other than that, I think everyone thought it was a pretty ingenious idea. And this does tie into Trump saying over the weekend that he wishes Musk would be even more aggressive. Musk responding on Twitter, "Will do, Mr. President." Trump again endorsed the email saying, we have to find out where these people are. Who are they? And we said, if you don't respond, we assume you're not around and you're not getting paid anymore too. So, we're doing a real job. And we just had a poll come out, I guess, the Harvard poll, saying that it's massively popular what we're doing. Well, back to that viewer's point, I think there's so many people that have had to go through these types of reviews, maybe not in this exact way, but have to go through these reviews in the private sector. So it doesn't come as a shock. If anything, it does seem like a kind of an ingenious way to weed through, are people checking their email? Are they even at work, or have they just been collecting a paycheck since COVID, working from home? Now, of course, the media is painting it as chaos. A day of confusing and often contradictory guidance left many federal workers still unclear ultimately how to handle the request. I guess if you're going to be on the safe side, would it be that difficult just to send that email if you're that concerned about your job? I mean, you can disagree with me. Feel free. But if someone whose main job is to cut government waste emails you and says, hey, could you just tell me some 5 things you accomplished last week? there shouldn't be that much chaos and confusion. Maybe just do it and then wait to find out what more guidance comes or what happens from all of this. Why the kind of the pushback or the fight when, again, so many people in the private sector have to deal with this in a frequent basis. So while some agencies convey that message in their guidance to employees, not all did, leaving many federal workers in the dark just hours before the deadline. Why are you in the dark? To me, it seems like something where, again, someone asks you for that information. Is it that difficult to send that email? Why is there the chaos and confusion? If you receive that, now, if you didn't receive that email, you might be concerned for other reasons. But if you received it, why not just send it in? Unless, to Musk's point, it paints a larger picture of a major issue. It's bedlam, said one current IRS employee. And the media and many politicians have been pointing to the IRS employees as the ones that should tug at your heartstring, that you should be so concerned about, so saddened about. Boy, I think that's a hard sell. That's not knocking any IRS employee. I'm just saying that's not the typical agency that people go to with warm feelings. So when they point to IRS employees, and that's where you should feel the saddest, or remember the one politician said, DOJ is coming after IRS. I think most Americans said, all right, here comes the cavalry finally. So it's bedlam at the IRS. CNN spoke to federal employees across multiple agencies, and all but one asked not to use their names for fear of retribution. Okay. Some are calling it a distraction. Like I said, bedlam, chaos. Today was crazy. A lot of people were coming in from being off to try to send an email, a silly email that doesn't even make any sense to us. Well, that's kind of maybe the federal workforce mindset. Doesn't make sense to us, so we don't have to do it. That's what was done in the first Trump administration. Is we don't like this guy. We're going to try to, as Trump calls it, the deep state or the swamp, we're going to try to gum up the works and make Trump's policies harder to succeed because they believe that they're smarter than the American people and smarter than the man who won president. So right there is kind of indicative of what we've talked about in the past, where they say, it's a silly email. We don't even get it. It's maybe not for you to get. It's maybe for you to respond in a timely fashion. So again, I'm not sure why there is chaos and this kind of confusion when it seems like a pretty simple task to send an email on Monday. You had all day Monday to send an email with your accomplishments. But again, this is coming from someone that's worked, I guess I did work in the federal buildings for a very short period, but it was a lot different than this. But most other than a 1 year, 4 month hiatus, been in the private sector, and this does not come as a shock, especially in media. This does not, performance reviews does not shock me. We used to, in radio, have to do air checks and listen to our shows for better performance nearly every day. One IRS person saying no reason during tax season. So there you are. We got to take a break, though, because we have the sheriff coming in. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this quick commercial break.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
It's time to say not so fast chronic kidney disease. Because with the progressive disease like CKD, slow is good. And believe me, I know all about slow. That's why I'm here to tell you about Jardiance. It's a little pill proven to slow the progression of CKD and reduce the risk of kidney failure, which can lead to dialysis.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardiance may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardiance. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
So go on, say not so fast, CKD. Ask your doctor about Jardiance for chronic kidney disease.
Every day, Ebony K. Williams presides is another day when right prevails over wrong.
I can tell what happened to you, sir, because I was born at night, not last night.
Equal Justice with Judge Ebony K. Williams.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Joining me in that studio is the Sheriff. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a beautiful day in Steuben County, Frank.
It always is. If you don't mind, I've got to catch up. I've got to catch up on a few comments here from viewers.
No worries.
Performance reviews can be a positive thing. When I would get mine, they would let me identify something I wanted to improve, and they would help me to improve in that area. Of course, like I mentioned, in the private sector, it's very common at performance reviews.
In the public sector also.
Yeah, right. And just that not this way, I guess. I don't know. It depends on who sends the email. Fred writes in, the media has alerted the workers to check your email. Yeah, they might have given away that. No Trump remorse here, Frank. Even if I don't fully understand why Trump is doing certain things, I believe that he and his administration are sincerely trying to help our country. And then there's the fact that he drives the left crazy, and that's entertaining. Well, thank you, viewer. And finally, it's kind of sad you have a government job and you can't figure out how to answer that email. See, that's what's interesting, because people are saying it's chaos because they don't know what to do. It seems pretty simple what to do.
Yeah.
Respond to the email.
Well, and where's their supervisors?
Right.
Where's the folks that are setting the policy?
Yep, absolutely. But that's not why you're here.
No.
So I've got a couple questions, and I
do want to point out that every deputy and correction officer has a yearly annual performance evaluation conducted by their first and second line supervisors at Steuben County.
Okay, well, good, thank you. We're gonna talk about the corrections officers, because that's obviously the big story. But last week we reported what LEA was saying. I was wondering if you could give us any updates on what is going on with the county.
I don't think anybody really knows what's going on with the county. You know, that I saw that statement, and the day after the decision came out from the Supreme Court,
right?
They filed a notice of appeal. The county did at that moment in time.
Okay.
The very next day, and then I was told, well, we filed it to protect our ability to appeal, but we're not going to appeal.
Okay.
And so this has been ongoing since November. Who knows how much more money they want to waste? I don't know, but I think there's a segment of that legislature and the administration that have kind of lost their way and are no longer serving their constituents, are only worried about their own personal power.
Yeah.
And we'll leave it at that.
Well, and I do think it's interesting because, petition season started.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to see if this leads to any primaries, if it leads to any kind of changes in the trajectory, if you will, because that's why I was surprised by the appeal vote itself, because I didn't think too many people would want to be on record in an election.
Right.
Year
and that was a surprise.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard of several races across the county where people are stepping up and saying we need to correct the trajectory of the Steuben County legislature, and are running, and some are running against people that are longtime incumbents.
Right.
And I'm excited to see one of the close ones is in the town of Irwin, I believe.
I saw that. Yep.
There's going to be a primary, and there's a stark division. The voters in Irwin have a really wide division of candidates there to vote for. You've got the incumbent, who is, I think, largely resting on his name, and then you've got a challenger who's come up who has a really great American-made story, he's like the American dream come true in the way that he's lived his life and fashioned his political and public persona. So it's going to be a pretty stark contrast for the voters in the town of Irwin.
And it's going to be interesting to see people excited about local races.
It is.
That's what
it is.
I couldn't believe the chatter already that I get either
Yeah.
on the program or just on the street, because that's not typical in a year like this year.
Well, and again, I think that's a lot what led to the dysfunction in the county government was that no one was paying attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And no one really cared until they started doing these incredibly irrational moves that people suddenly went, whoa, what's going on here, and why don't we know about this?
Well,
Because
isn't it
was
awesome?
all behind closed doors.
Yeah, that's what the judge found, the executive session being misused.
Yes.
So we even if we wanted to know, we couldn't know.
Yeah, even if I want to know, I can't.
Well, yeah, that's true. And we'll move on from that topic. But you had mentioned the cost. What ballpark? What was the cost at for those that weren't paying attention?
Well, we did. We tallied it all up as of September, but then there's been more costs since then. So we're at $250,000 right now, all in
for taxpayers.
Yes.
Okay.
Taxpayer money to try and persecute me.
I can't believe this is ongoing. I can't believe we're still talking about this.
I know. It's insane.
It's
just
what a wild ride
insane.
for you. But the major story, obviously, and for the right reason, is about the corrections officers. Now, what do you specifically call it? Protest?
I think it's an act of desperation.
Yeah.
You've got, and I've got friends that are in both Elmira and Five Points and Groveland, and what we see is they've been pushed to the point of desperation where this is the only. I think most of them feel their union isn't taking care of them. Obviously, the state has turned their back on them.
Clearly.
And I think I brought this up on this before. I had an Army general tell me one time, morale's simple. You got to have an important job. You got to have the tools and training to do that important job. And then you've got to have the support of the people that send you to do that important job.
Right.
There's no more important job than correction officer. They don't have the tools and training at the state level that even we have at the county level. And they obviously don't have the support of the people that are sending them to do that job. That's a problem, and it's put them in a place of desperation. They're working 24-hour, they're mandated 24 hours.
How was that even possible?
And their union hasn't stopped it.
That's what it almost seems illegal. I mean, if my boss told me, you got to go on the air for 24 hours straight, I think I'd be calling the labor department, wouldn't you?
I thought you'd say, don't threaten me with a good time.
No, yeah, I could do it. Don't worry, I could do it.
No, but it's true, and we face that at the county level. We're supposed to have 75 full-time correction officers. We're right now, I think, 14 down out of that group. So people are working doubles a lot, and they're working a ton of overtime, and they're getting ordered to work overtime at least a couple times a week, which is nothing close to what these state COs are getting ordered to do. But we see the fallout. And I'd like to correct something on the HALT Act, too. Yeah. It doesn't say that what it says is you can't, it attacks putting people alone. No one does that.
Right.
We segregate. We never put them in by themselves in a little hole
in the ground.
Right.
That's what they're trying to paint that picture.
Yes, that's what it's been represented as. But what it is you have segregated housing for disciplinary issues where it limits the amount of time they have interaction with other inmates because they get into fights and assaults, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what the HALT Act has eliminated, is that ability to remove the most dangerous from the rest of the population.
Isn't it interesting? I was talking with Phil Palmisano about this last week. There's a HALT Act for
solitary confinement.
HALT Act.
My brain froze for a sec.
That's kind of obviously made it much more unsafe in the prisons.
Oh, it is.
Just like bail reform in the streets. It's like they're not happy until the law has their hand tied and the criminals are the ones that are being
correct. We're treating. And that's been across the board for the last 5 years. We're treating our correction officers as if they're the problem, not the people that are convicted of felonies that are in prison. Those folks are in prison because they've proven they can't function in society.
Right.
let's support our correction officers. And if we don't think they're doing things right, let's give them the training and the tools to do it right.
Right.
And that's what we're not doing at the state level.
And you talk about morale. I mean, you have the HALT Act, you talk 24 hours, just the safety issues with it. None of us are that sharp after 24 hours staying up.
No.
And you have to do it very stressful.
Even
high-demand
after
job.
16 hours.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I've worked 16-hour shifts on the road, and you're whooped.
Yeah.
And you're not sharp.
And then you've got you can't even count down. Look forward to the countdown because 24 hours is just too long.
Yeah. How do you do that?
And you look at last week, probably the coldest week of the year, and they went out and said enough's enough.
Yeah.
You got to really pat them on the back for
nothing
for saying
but mad
enough.
respect for what they're doing, and for the fact that they're standing up. Obviously, I can identify with standing up for what's right and doing the right thing.
Right.
And I believe that's exactly what they're doing, and the state needs to figure out how they're going to right this ship. And once again, we're the only state in the union that has this issue.
Of course.
And you look at the homeless, everybody says, where are all the homeless coming from? Well, we're going to kick another 22,000 out of state prison.
Yeah, yeah.
The first stop they have is at local DSS to get housing.
Yeah. Did you see that Hochul wants to close 5 more prisons?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'll ask this question.
That's her solution, apparently.
Yeah. Well, that's like Phil always brings it up. That's her solution.
Yeah.
Is to close the prisons and make it even less safe. And I got so many questions about Hochul when we come back. So let's take a break. I can't run late. I told myself already. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
Wheaton Fitzpatrick, located at 6 Gansevoort Street in Bath, is your experienced, highly qualified, and trusted certified public accounting firm. The dedicated and knowledgeable staff of Wheat Fitzpatrick can handle every type of accounting work, including personal and business income taxes. Stop into Wheaton Fitzpatrick at 6 Gansevoort Street or give them a call at 607-776-4308. The certified public accountants Charles Wheat and Kelly Fitzpatrick will work hard to make tax time easier for you. Call for an appointment at 607-776-4308.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife Catherine.
Anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
The BITS website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and we're in that studio with the sheriff. A lot of nice comments, and I was telling you off the air, I don't write these myself. These are just very nice people that happen to like the show. So first off, well, how about this one? This goes back to the Elon Musk email. I'd like to see an email sent to the 340-year-old that still works at the IRS and see if that person responds. That's a good point. I would be curious of Sheriff Allard's thoughts on the corrections officer strike in Elmira. Well, we kind of mentioned that, and we're going to continue to talk about that. Good morning, Frank. Stay sane, Sheriff Allard. Thank you for that comment.
Must be somebody that knows me.
Yeah. And this one's super nice. Thank God for people like Jim Allard and Frank Acom that are helping to keep this region a great place to live and off the nasty list of places to live. That's nothing me. That's all you.
Nice.
I actually threw my name in that one. No, back to corrections officers. There's a really good piece And we know all the numbers because Phil can recite them in his sleep. You
Yes.
know that.
Yep.
So we know all the numbers, but there's a really good piece at the New York Post today that said they don't think that they couldn't even believe that Governor Hochul bungled this up as bad as she did.
Right.
Even with her track record. But she, say what you want about Cuomo. Cuomo,
easy now.
I know, but he was ruthless.
He was.
With her, she tries to play so many sides that it ends up leading to failure.
Doesn't lead.
Yeah.
There's no leadership at the state level right now.
No. You're right. Thank you for stopping me on that, by the way.
Well, it's a ship headed towards the rocks, and nobody's at the wheel.
Yeah, because what is she doing right now? She sent out a quote unquote clear message, but then didn't follow up on any of it.
Correct.
There's more talk about her lieutenant governor, which is kind of interesting, right? Leaving the campaign than her talking about the corrections officers, and this is just going to grow.
Well, not only is it going to grow, but each and every one of these correction officers has a family.
Mm-hmm.
They have lives. Yeah. I mean, everything that's going on affects them. And when you look at, and you've heard me speak about wellness, when you look at the PTSD associated with this, and you look at the cumulative effect on the corrections community, it's no secret that the average law enforcement officer's life expectancy is 15% lower than the average civilian, and that the numbers are typically within 5 years of retirement, you're suffering some major health issue. What do we think this is doing to those correction officers and their families that are living through this strike, and that are living through the 24-hour mandatory sticks and all of these things that are going on? And it's not rocket science to fix it.
No.
And it surely isn't the job of the National Guard.
No, not at all. And you even go back to something as simple as when Phil Palmasan talked about it, but when she could close a prison with 90 days notice. So you're working as a corrections officer, you've got your whole family living in, let's say, Elmira.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, oh, sorry, we're closing this.
You've been there for 15, 20 years.
Yeah. And 90 days isn't long enough to make any plans.
No.
And to move. So now you've got the stress of the job, 24 hours, you're not seeing your family, and now there's the potential at any moment getting that phone call that you either have to uproot your family or take a different job.
Well, and again, the whole perspective is one of complete and utter disrespect for these correction officers who do literally put their lives on their line, on the line when they're at work. And we're going to ignore that and again, treat them as if they're the problem instead of the solution.
Yeah.
It's the same with the green light law, with immigration here in New York State. And it's so many policies that come out of Albany that treat law enforcement in general as the problem instead of the solution, instead of investing in the solution.
Yeah, because if you even look at it when Hochul was talking about involuntary commitment for people. Do you remember Carl Hasty comes out and says, nah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's
we're not going to do that.
There's not even conversations on this type of stuff. But when it comes to corrections officers, it's perfect for Hochul because this is what they think in Albany. They don't have to see any of them. Is that walls around them, and that's why these protests are shaking them because they see that these are real people.
Well, and this started over a week and a half ago at Collins Correctional, which is in Governor Hochul's backyard.
Yeah.
It's in Erie County, and that started with a riot there, and then the strikes went. But if you look at, especially in Erie County, you've got a lot of state COs that live and work there, and that's where she's from.
Right.
And she's turned her back on those folks. And she's turned her back on the hundreds of thousands of people that work, not just in the state prison system, but also in the county jail systems.
Right.
With the HALT Act and with all of these onerous laws that they've come out, again, treating the correction officers as if they're the problem instead of the solution.
And isn't it nice, because I know you had this happen with everything going on in the county, the outpouring from the community. I mean, you see the videos, you see people stopping by, dropping off donuts, pizza. They've got a ton of food, wood for their burning barrels.
That's what a friend of mine works up to 5 Points, and he said that the Seneca County Sheriffs took them a truckload of wood on day one.
Isn't that great?
Firewood for their barrels. And I was like, good on them. I saw Sheriff Akshar from Broome County, who used to be a state senator, Akshar, down visiting the folks at Elmira the other day, and good on him. Good on him. And we hire a ton. You know, I've got over 20 retired COs that work for us, state correction officers that work for us in retirement, and they're just when I talk to them, they're just baffled.
Yeah.
How we could get to this state.
And that's really it. When you have people being interviewed saying, I don't care if I lose my job anymore, this has to stop.
Correct.
You know they've reached the boiling point. And
It's desperation.
It is.
Complete and total desperation.
Also, it's been a long time since I've seen a burning barrel.
I know.
It's kind of fun when I first started. I like the pit. We're great, and we have such a great viewership here in general. But we had a lot of corrections officers that watch this program, and they were sending us pictures, and the solidarity there is
to me, they're
unmistakable.
Heroes. They are absolute heroes.
I couldn't agree more. All right, we're going to take another short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Hard water makes it hard to keep your home looking like the work of art you've always envisioned it would be. Culligan softeners reduce hard water buildup and your cleaning time, transforming every drop, every splash, every rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. With a Culligan water softener, revel in the breathtaking beauty of your home, just the way you've always pictured it. Culligan, water you love.
I'm Grace.
I'm Ida, and I lived in California.
Timmy was just a puppy when I moved in. He's a emotional support animal.
I had Missy, who was 15 years old and blind.
Likes the people, he likes to greet all the people. All the employees are happy to see him.
I feel that my pets are very welcome here. I feel very welcome here. I think it's great.
Hey, Southern Florida's calling, and we've got some exciting news. Allegiant Air is expanding its schedule. We are now offering a new service to Sarasota, a flight to Sanford, Orlando, Tampa St. Pete, and Punta Gorda, a Myra Corning Regional Airport, the premier airport of the Southern Tier.
Every day Judge Ebony K. Williams presides is another day when right prevails over wrong.
I can tell what happened to you, sir, because I was born at night, not last night.
Equal Justice with Judge Ebony K. Williams.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and joining me in that studio is Sheriff Allard. All right, comment from a viewer. Good morning. Well, hey, good morning. I asked my husband why Trump doesn't step in the corrections officer situation. He said Trump's trying to have basically Hochul oust herself in a way.
Right.
Hurt Hochul. I don't know. Can he get involved? I don't even know how that would work.
He can always comment.
Yeah.
He can
that's
always
true.
comment.
That is true.
And I wish he would, because it's ridiculous. Again, I think about the National Guard going in. When I went in the Army, I was 18.
Yeah.
Fresh out of high school, right off the farm.
Yeah.
Can you imagine taking that kid and putting him in a state prison and saying, with no training, you got to go guard these folks that have killed people?
Yeah. They didn't sign up for that.
No. And it's so irresponsible.
And do they have to follow, I wonder, the Hull Act? The
I would assume so.
You would
They're
assume,
state employees.
But who knows?
Yeah.
You don't know, because they're not trained for that.
No, that's what I'm saying. That is a recipe for disaster.
All right, so I want to talk about this because we haven't talked. We talked when you went to the state sheriff's conference, but I don't think we've talked about the national conference. How was that?
That was awesome.
Yeah,
it really was. What a change.
Yeah,
what a change.
I'm sure.
Tom Holman, the border czar, came in and presented to us.
I got to hear more about that in a second.
And he. It was like my dad became the border czar, because he said, I have a job to do. The president gave me a job to do. I'm going to do that job. If people don't like it, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
That was his message.
Hold on. I got to see if I can cut that up. Hold on real quick. All right. Now you got to talk. Sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
You're right.
But I don't give a
darn. Okay, give me just a second.
You got an old interview here with YTV?
But that's exactly what he said.
I'm sure. He does
yeah,
it on
yeah,
Fox
yeah,
all the
yeah.
time. All right, here we go. All right, we're going to go back live here. We're going to see how that goes. We are back live. There we go. So,
Sorry
yes,
about that.
that's all right, Tom Holman. No nonsense.
No nonsense. And, he brought up...
He's like a rock star in the
He's from upstate New York.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, he's up from... he grew up in West Carthage.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So he knows our area, and he knows our northern border. And that was one of his messages was, we're going to make a difference on that northern border also. And for places, the sanctuary cities like Ithaca that don't play ball and let people go.
Right.
He said, we're going to come in and we're not only going to get that person, but we're going to get 5 of his friends that are here illegally too. And we'll take them all. And that's the way we'll deal with sanctuary cities.
Well, I'm encouraged too that it seemed like for a long time no one was talking about the northern border.
Right.
And then we start to learn the numbers, and it's crazy.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary. It is.
Yeah. Well, so that must have been kind of neat to see him.
It was very very educational and very inspirational.
Yeah. Anything else that happened at the sheriff's conference?
Yeah, we met with, so I was part of a delegation of 4 sheriffs, New York sheriffs, that met with legislators on the Hill. And I met with the Orange County Sheriff, the Rensselaer County Sheriff, and the Chautauqua County Sheriff. And I met with both of our senators, Gillibrand and Schumer.
Okay.
Met with Congressman Langworthy, Congressman Ryan from Hudson Valley, and Congressman Lawler from the Hudson Valley area.
Well, that's a name we've been talking about quite a bit, because there's some speculation there that he didn't let
He
anything
wouldn't
on.
commit when we were there.
No.
He wouldn't say. He told the Orange County Sheriff, he said, when I make my decision, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, but
if
seemed
not,
like
he's
a very
trying
genuine. Seemed like a very genuine individual. I liked him.
And I also I want to point out, since we have a second here, Congressman Langworthy has also been very outspoken on the northern border.
Yes.
He was, I'm not going to say ahead of the curve, because Holman and people like that were talking about it before, but he jumped right on board and said something needs to be done.
Yeah. Well, and when the Border Patrol presented to us in 2024, it was, I can't remember the numbers, but it was almost 400 known and suspected terrorists came across the northern border compared to less than 100 in the southern border. Wow. And it's because what they're doing is flying from Mexico City to Toronto and then just bringing them right over, or to Montreal.
Well, because when everybody was focused on the southern border, there was a window of opportunity.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a very helpful conference.
It was, and obviously I went to a lot of classes. That's the best part of it, is I went to quite a few classes on officer wellness and on scams, and went to one for elderly scams by the Treasury Department, which was very helpful, that I brought back to Triad here in Steuben County. All that information and speaking with sheriffs from across the nation is very helpful, in that we all have the same issues.
Yeah.
And we're all facing the same challenges, and to hear how different folks address those challenges, it's very helpful.
And the elderly scam is interesting, because we've dealt with that so often in this area.
Yes,
and how do you keep up on that?
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. We meet, one of our lieutenants, Lieutenant Locke, meets with Triad every time they have a meeting, and we talk about ways to meet with different senior citizen groups and share that information. But the trouble is that as folks age, especially when they age in place, things that seem too good to be true, which really are too good to be true, it seems like a great idea to provide for their children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
And then they end up losing vast amounts of money because of it.
And you have scenarios like with all the recent natural disasters where people, I mean, isn't that sick?
It is.
But
and
that's
the
why
majority of that money is leaving the country.
Yeah, oh yeah.
In the scams, it's going to Eastern Europe, it's going to Northern Africa, and it's leaving here. And it's a big impact on our economy.
Did they talk about the use of AI and how much? Yeah. So is that becoming a real big concern in the sheriff's office and just in general?
It is, because there's a couple things. We just had a scam not too long ago where it was, this is Sergeant so-and-so from the Steuben County Sheriff's Office. If you don't pay this money by Venmo or gift card by this date, we will be at your house with a warrant. Wow. You missed your court date. And what really tipped folks off was the sergeant's name that they used in the scam was from Steuben County, Indiana. Sheriff's Office.
Oh, wow.
So that made that one a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But we've had it before.
But that means they're quote unquote doing research. They're just not getting it right. Wow.
And we've had it before where they've used actual names of sergeants of our agency and done that. They did one 2 years ago where our sergeant that's in charge of the sex offender program, they were contacting sex offenders and saying you had missed your registry dates and $500, or we're going to come get you. Wow. And that's a population that's going to send the money.
Sure. Yeah. Boy, isn't that interesting? And it's terrifying because, like you mentioned, we were talking specifically about elderly scams, but they're becoming so sophisticated. It's not even just elderly. I mean, we've seen people that you would think would be up on technology that it's costing them thousands of times.
Right, when you get the text that says you didn't pay your Easy Pass.
Yeah, something as simple as that.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Well, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Wheaton Fitzpatrick, located at 6 Gansford Street in Bath, is your experienced, highly qualified, and trusted certified public accounting firm. The dedicated and knowledgeable staff of Wheat Fitzpatrick can handle every type of accounting work, including personal and business income taxes. Stop into Wheaton Fitzpatrick at 6 Gansford Street or give them a call at 607-776-4308. The certified public accountants Charles Wheat and Kelly Fitzpatrick will work hard to make tax time easier for you. Call for an appointment at 607-776-4308.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife Catherine.
Anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
The Bix website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horsets. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corner. We got the sheriff in the studio. All right. Question from a comment, or comment from a viewer. Question, whatever, you get it. I'd like to ask Sheriff Allard, what can citizens do to try and stop the madness? What he has gone through is wrong on so many levels, and the treatment of the corrections officers is so disturbing to me.
Yes.
How can we address this?
Be involved, register to vote, be involved in your local government, but also be involved and make sure you vote for your state government.
Yeah.
And take someone with you to vote. I think, you know, our power is in our ability to elect folks that are going to serve the public, not try to make the public serve them. And that's where our power lies. So become involved in your local politics. And I know that it's unfortunate that our county is one of the few that has all of their meetings during the daytime when people are, most people are working. There's definite opinions on that. But be involved. Most of them are on Zoom. You can watch them after the fact even. Most of the committee meetings. Be involved and contact your legislator and let them know what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah, and that's why on this program we made it such an important point to have as many of the candidates on. And it can, you know, turn some viewers off because they'll say, well, I'm not in Corning. What do I
Right.
get? But where do you get the information if you don't?
Right.
Because anymore with the media landscape, there's not too many opportunities.
Oh, and this Friday night is the Lincoln Day dinner up in Hornell.
that's right. I forgot about that.
Kind of the biggest Republican deal in the county.
The kickoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
I'll be at that.
It's hard to believe that. Well, for the people that don't pay attention, that petitions start today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
In all this beautiful weather.
I know. Thank you. Thanks
for,
Albany.
for doing that. But it does seem like people, and going back to what we were saying earlier, the outpouring from the community has been so great. I think people are starting to get fed up.
Yeah.
Because like you said, or what I was saying, with bail reform, it's affecting our public safety. With the halt, it's affecting public safety that we don't know.
Public safety,
but
believe me.
Yeah, but also, even in the prisons, when Phil rattles off those numbers, not just the inmate on inmate assaults, but the inmate on staff assaults increasing that much, and yet you still have people defending the halt
we've
act.
seen a huge uptake in inmate on inmate assaults. And we actually charge them with a felony when they do that to try and discourage it. But when you look at the HALT Act's just one small piece of the puzzle.
Right.
They passed a regulation 2 years ago that any pregnant female can't be shackled when she's transported. Well, we had Billy Joe Ribble not that long ago, who at 7 months pregnant kidnapped a mother and a baby at knife point and forced her to drive her across from Pennsylvania back into New York, and is doing federal prison time now. So this notion that we seem to be in this notion that every person that's in jail is this poor person that just needs a hug.
Right.
And they're in jail and prison because they can't function in society without hurting other people.
Right. And that's what the New York Post was saying this morning when it comes to the solitary, saying this is just to help them behave.
Yes.
If they behave, none of this is ever an issue.
And it's to protect the rest of the population from their outbursts.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think this leads to something, the combination of all this public safety, that Hochul, I mean, if she's going to have, it looks like maybe 2 primary challengers at least. And look, Lee Zeldin did great running on public safety.
Yes. And I think now is the time for a Republican candidate to step forward and chart a path forward.
We talked about that last time.
And show this is where we are. These are the steps we need to take to get to a functional government at the state level.
Yeah.
And this is what we need to do to support and train. When you look at as ugly as the Marcy incident was, and horrible to see, and just completely disturbing to watch, that's the effect of not having the tools and the training to do the job correctly.
Yeah.
And who carries that burden? The governor does, because all of that comes directly from that office.
And the governor again has done such a poor job in handling this. What is the answer for that? I don't think she has an answer.
She doesn't.
She's so, I know I say it a lot on this program that she's not ready for prime time, but that's what it seems like. You've got a person that didn't run for governor. She was lieutenant, and she gets in there. Now she has run. I just don't think she's got it.
Well, this is the time to show if she does. This is the time to be a leader.
Yeah.
And right now we haven't seen any leadership. All we've seen is more coercion.
Right. But if you think of the progressives in her party, they don't want to see a change to the HALT Act.
No. We met with the Sheriff's Association, met with several of the assembly people last year. We made a conscious effort to do that. And the one that's been the architect of the HALT Act and several others said, look, my goal is zero incarceration.
Right.
Period.
Right.
I don't care how we get there, and I don't care what it does. It's just completely irrational.
It is completely irrational. And I think that's why people are watching this so closely. That's why the community is coming out and bringing coffee and donuts, because they're saying, this is wrong. We support you. Albany may not support you, but we're going to support you because we understand when people start hearing the numbers about how many hours they're working, hearing how that obviously is affecting their family life, their social life, and then you
add their health.
And their health.
Everything across the board.
And then they wonder why things, and this isn't an excuse, but think about when after 16 hours, but let's say 24 hours, I'm pretty grumpy, So then you have a job that is high stress, and you've got people that you are overseeing that do not like you.
One of the primary rules I have is that tired and frustrated law enforcement officers make bad decisions.
Yeah.
And what do we need? What can we do to make them either less tired or less frustrated in their workplace so they don't make those bad decisions?
Right.
And when you have people working 24s and treating them as less than and telling them that they're not worth what they're being paid
right.
or not worth anything, they're going to make bad decisions.
No,
it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
No, and that's what I was saying off the air. Sometimes it just takes a pat on the back, and it's such a morale booster. And and it's not anything, but just, hey, you're doing a good job. We know this is a stressful job.
Yes, it is a very stressful
and
job.
Instead, you have Hochul and Albany working against you. I mean, that's we've joked in the past, but when budget season comes up, we're all terrified to see what's next.
Right.
You never know what the governor's going to propose. Just like I mentioned this morning, closing 5 more prisons.
I tell our road patrol, I say, 15 to 20% of your time is dealing with the worst of the worst.
Yep.
In society, if you're a correction officer, 100% of your time is dealing with the worst and the worst.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
In society that no one else wants to deal with. So if you don't have vast respect for what they're doing and the job they're doing that no one else wants to do, something wrong with you.
Well, and how long have we been talking where there's such a need for corrections officers? And then when we see these stories, no wonder there's a need for corrections officers.
Yeah, who would be dumb enough to do that?
That's what it's starting to sound like. Because again, at the end of the day, Hochul has shown that she's not respecting them and
not valuing them.
That's a great way of putting it. Not valuing them. And I don't want to keep belaboring this point, but there is a reason these men and women went out on the coldest days of the year and said, enough is enough. I don't care if I'm going to lose my job. We've got to, and what they're doing is ultimately they're doing it for the betterment of their coworkers, saying we want to do this, and even if I'm out of a job, let's correct this.
And it's also for the betterment of the incarcerated folk.
Yeah.
Because again, they're not feeling safe.
Yep.
You've got one correction officer covering 60 people in a dorm.
Yeah. No.
I'm not feeling safe.
No. We got to take our last break, and then we're wrapping up the show. This is going quick.
Yeah.
It always does. I know it always does. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine.
Anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back in the Hesselson studio with the sheriff. We're wrapping up. Why? This, like I said, it goes quick. First, though, this is a reminder, because it caught so many people off guard last time you were on, the boater safety course.
Yes.
Everybody has to have it.
Everybody, if you're going to operate a motorized vessel in navigable waterway in the state of New York.
You've done this a few times.
Yep. Then, yes, you'll have to have the boater safety certificate or the Coast Guard comparable.
Okay. And how do they start that process?
So we're still holding them monthly at the sheriff's office for free, or you can go online with New York State Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation website.
Okay.
And you can pay, I think it's like $40 to take it online.
Okay. But that's that's in your home, right?
Yes.
You can do that. Okay.
Yeah.
How busy do you think you're going to be with those courses as the weather
Well,
breaks?
so we started last March doing them monthly and advertising them, trying to, because so many people are like, holy cow.
Yeah.
You know, I was one of them. I got mine last year.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've been driving boats for a few days.
Well, that's why I wanted you to say, because people think that I'm lying to them when I say it, or
No.
that I'm misinformed. They'll go, that's
Yeah.
not true. I've been
Right,
driving a
no,
boat
yeah.
for Yes,
Yes.
take your boater safety
Get
course.
your boater safe. And it's a good course.
Yeah.
And, you know, I learned a couple things in it, even after driving boats for 40
sure.
plus years.
Sure.
So it's a good course, and it's worth the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, before we go, because I think we've talked about some really good things here and making some accomplishments, but it's always nice to kind of end on a positive note. What's going on a positive note?
So this March, well, in 2 weeks, a week and a half, the March Public Safety, we're going to be commending 2 correction officers and 5 deputies. The 2 correction officers saved a inmate that was trying to kill himself.
Yeah.
And trying to asphyxiate himself, and they saved him, and he's doing well. We had 2 different life-saving events with our deputy EMTs, where cardiac arrest, where when they arrived, no heartbeat, and by the time they got him in the ambulance, breathing and beating, and survived, both of them. A lot
That's
of times we
amazing.
have ones that don't survive. They survived 2 different events, which was really the paramedics. I know when the paramedic calls me and says, hey, I got to tell you about what your guys did last night.
Yeah, right.
It was a pretty cool thing. And then we also have another deputy who, in dealing with an emotionally disturbed child, the parent and the school official took it upon themselves to write letters alerting me how well that person did. So we're going to be doing a bunch of commendations next month for the good work that our folks are doing in the communities.
How nice is that? Because let's face it, a lot of people are quick to write letters to complain.
Right.
For any job.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
You should see my text right now.
It's-
No, I'm just kidding. But so it's nice when someone takes the time out of their day to say, you know what, thank you.
And I tell our deputies when we have the full staff meeting that, you know, because of my age and how long I've been doing this, they're like my kids.
Oh, yeah, I'm
a
sure.
lot of the
Yeah.
time. So it's like when somebody says, boy, I just want to tell you, your child, you know, was super,
amazing.
Yeah, they were so courteous and so polite, and you get that same feeling. I do at
Yeah.
least.
So that must be a special part of your job with the accommodations.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. And when I see, because we do a lot of training and we do a lot of investment in our employees, and when I see them shine like that,
Yeah.
it makes you feel like it's all worthwhile.
When you mention that investment in your employees, I'm shocked because I always say how I like the newsletter, but you've got those guys running ragged, those men and women.
They're busy.
I
They
didn't
are.
know there's that many safety courses and courses that they have to take.
Well, busy hands are happy
Good
hands.
thing. Yes, but
So-
it is impressive. If people haven't seen the newsletter, they should.
Well, and again, you know, I've
Yeah.
always said that professionalism is achieved through training.
Yes.
And only through an abundance of training can you have an abundance of professionalism. And when we do these accommodations, that's proof of there's proof
Yeah. Yes.
that the professionalism is working.
Absolutely. Final comment on our way out the door. What a great interview. Always welcome the sheriff. Isn't that nice?
That is nice.
It's nice.
Thank you.
It is nice that your wife watches. All right.
I thought you were going to say it was my mother.
There we go. Either way. Either way. All right. That does it today. Thanks so much for giving us so much time, Sheriff, and let's do it
Always.
again soon.
Yes.
Keep us updated on everything.
Thanks for
okay?
having me on, Frank. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll be back tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. with Frankly Speaking only on Big Fox.
Power up, America. The Ford President's Day sales event is here. Save on the vehicles that will take you places, give you a surge of productivity, and a new sense of freedom. So head to your local Ford store, because it's time to get in the driver's seat. A special offer for Jeep and GM owners. Lease a Bronco Sport for $289 a month for 36 months. Only at your local Ford stores.